too.
Okay, so hi everybody. We're just gonna kick off real quick with a super short and sweet Zoom training. So let me just share my screen for a second and pull this up. Oh, actually, wait, I forgot. Let's do some quick intros. So Nigel, do you want to take over the intros for a second?
Yeah, so just like intro for the whole day. Welcome all, everybody. We're excited to have you for day 2 of our first ever Digital Leadership Summit. We'll take a couple of minutes. There are some new staff that weren't here yesterday, and not everybody who's participating was here yesterday. So we'll go ahead and do some staff intros, and then I'll go over the agenda and then do like a quick housekeeping reminder, and then we can get started. So I'm Nigel. I'm the Kansas State organizer based out of Wichita, Kansas, and my pronouns are he, him. And I'll hand it off to Andy from Texas.
Hey y'all, my name is Andy. My pronouns are he and they, or Eli, ella, and I'm the Texas organizer. And I'll pass it over to Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily. I am the Georgia State organizer. I'm based in Macon, Georgia, and my pronouns are she, her, ea, and I can pass it on to Olivia.
Hey everyone, my name is Olivia. I'm the Ohio State organizer. I'm based out of Columbus, and I use she, her pronouns. And I will pass it off to Sonia.
Hey folks, my name is Sonia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the California State Senior Organizer, and I am based out of Oakland, California, and I will pass it over to Jessie.
Hey everyone, my name is Jessie. I use she, her, ea pronouns. I am the California State Organizer for Southern California, based in Los Angeles. If anyone wants to join me in this oil cleansing right now, feel free to pull out your skincare and listen up. But I will pass it to Abiha.
Hi everyone, my name is Abiha Zakaria. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm URGE's Individual Giving and Alumni Relations Manager, and I'm Zooming in from Austin, Texas. And I'm going to pass it on to Kathleen.
Thanks, Abiha. Hi, everybody. My name is Kathleen. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a California State organizer with URGE, based out of Sacramento, California. Are there any more staff left to intro? Andy with an I, did you go?
No, I'm Andy Lawhead. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. I'm our Alabama organizer. And oh, it looks like MK, are you on?
Hey, lovely people. I am here. I'll be joining via camera shortly. I am MK. I use she and they pronouns, and I am a Georgia State organizer for the Metro Atlanta, North Georgia area. Yeah, really happy and super thrilled to see the amount of people who are on this call right now. Thank you all so much for showing up and pulling through.
All right, thanks for having those intros, everybody. I'm gonna pass it back to Emily to talk about Free the Pill. So Emily, do you wanna go ahead?
Yes, thank you. So if you haven't heard already, we have Free the Pill Fest. It will be coming up online October 13th through the 14th, and it is about advocating for over-the-counter oral contraceptives. So we're just looking for content creators. We're looking forward to funding y'all for your projects, and it just has to be centered around what accessing over-the-counter oral contraceptives, that is a mouthful, and what it means for young folks. So as well as the challenges young folks face when they're trying to access birth control. And there are 3 content tiers that we're considering. There's a short content, medium, long. There are a lot that go under that category. So please check the application. It really describes what falls under those categories. And anyone living in an urge investment state, or who go to a university or school in an investment state may apply. Applications are on a rolling deadline. Oh yes, can someone please mute themselves? Sorry, let me repeat that. So there is a rolling deadline for applications, and it is until October 1st. And the submission deadline for content is October 6th. So yeah, and also unfortunately, current full-time and part-time employees may not apply, but yes, that's what we're looking forward to. And you can find our links in our bios, in our link tree for each social media bio. I think I covered it. I'll
Question.
Yes.
By employees, does that include canvassers?
Yes.
Okay.
It includes canvassers, but it doesn't include anybody who's receiving a stipend. So if you're one of our folks journalists, you can apply.
Thank you for clarifying that, Nigel. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, so just quickly, just gonna go over the agenda. We're gonna start off with an intro to Zoom training hosted by our wonderful Kavleen and Abiha. And that'll be about 25 minutes, then we'll take a 10-minute break. You can do a bio break, get some water, get some snacks. And then we'll get into our 45-minute long intro to digital security by our friends with the Digital Defense Fund. And then just a housekeeping reminder, if you were part of the workshop yesterday, make sure to fill out that evaluation. We really value your feedback, and we only get better when you tell us what we need to work on. And we also want to hear if we're doing a good job too. Just let us know how we're doing. Yeah, and I hand it off to Andy.
Hey y'all, thank y'all so much for being here once again. Happy Thursday, right, TGIT. So I just really wanted to quickly go over the reimbursement document. I know some folks have been having issues with our Uber Eats. The codes, reason, a myriad of reasons things don't work out. So I just really quickly wanted to go over this document so everyone knows what it looks like and how to fill it out. I won't go too much into it, but here's what the doc looks like. And we actually have it to where you can pre-fill in your content, right? So it should be fairly easy. We just want to make sure that y'all include all the information. It does request a social security number. This is just for tax purposes. And then here the reasoning. So today, if you're doing it for today, you'd put the 17th and you put day 2. And everyone gets a $20 food stipend. So it would be $20 here, and the total will be $20 here. You sign it, you date it, and you include your receipt as a PDF, and that's it. Just wanted to go over that with you. If you need this document, reach out to one of us directly, and we'll make sure you get this. And just submit it to one of us, and we will carry that on forward for you. Thank you.
All right, everyone, let's get started with the Zoom training. I'm gonna start sharing my screen now. Where is it? Okay, here we go. And share. Okay, is that visible for everybody? Should be. Okay, so that's there we go. All right, so this is our little tiny Zoom course with Abiha and Kavleen. It probably won't take a whole 25 minutes, especially since the Digital Defense Fund training is pretty thorough, so definitely want to leave enough room to have that after our break. But so Zoom luckily is pretty intuitive, and all of you have some familiarity with it already. So this will just kind of be like a refresher and maybe just like a little reminder of all the things that you can do with Zoom to make your meetings fun and productive. Well, maybe not even that productive, but I guess productive for the sake of getting whatever you need to get done. So Abiha, do you want to go ahead and take this part over?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Abiha, again, she, her pronouns. I'm the individual giving and alumni relations manager at URGE. And I am very excited to be here because I am a secret comedian and I laugh at my own jokes. And so my colleagues were like, hey, you need to come and talk about how to make Zoom facilitation fun. Because you know what? Zoom facilitation sucks. I'll just say it. I'll put it out there. I hate being on Zoom. I hate being on camera. I hate like how beautiful I look and everyone else gets to see me and, you know, whatever. So we're going to have a little fun with this. So if you can, in the chat box, put in a like 1 or 2 sentences what you would rather be doing than being on Zoom. Have fun with it. I'll go first. I would rather be playing with my cat because he's really cute. And I would rather be doing that than being on Zoom. Okay, I've got some stuff in there. Alyssa would rather be sleeping. Yeah. Right, Emily? Cuddling cats is like, I wish I got paid to cuddle my cat. I would be so rich at that point. Cool. So we'd all rather be doing something differently than being on Zoom. But we're in this world and Zoom is kind of the way to go. Also, who was part of the Skype generation? Right? Right? What happened to Skype? I wish Skype had kind of done it, but whatever. Moving forward. So the first point I want to make is to have fun with your content. We are kind of in the middle of a clusterfuck of a year. So we don't want to like make light of that. Everyone has their own like ways of dealing with it. But it's important that when you show up to your Zoom meeting, and even before you show up to your Zoom meeting, come in with energy, any kind of energy. And it's kind of up to the host to set the groundwork for that. The way I personally do it is when I create the Zoom meeting, from the get-go, from that initial email that goes out to the reminder email that Zoom lets you set up, to like any pre-work that needs to be done beforehand. Give that information beforehand, because nothing is worse than showing up to a Zoom meeting, having no idea what the context is, and having like whiplash. I usually get whiplash when I'm in these meetings and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be chill. And next thing you know, they're talking about some like deep, heavy shit. And I'm like, no, I need to be prepared for this. So as you move on into your like Zoom host organizing, I would highly recommend to mentally prepare participants so that they don't come into like a surprise. And then the biggest part, which is to have fun. Let your personality show. How many of you were in yesterday's Zoom with Reggie, right? How cool was that? How cool was Reggie's energy, and how did it make you feel? So bring that passion, bring that enthusiasm, and it does impact. Don't be fake about it, because if you're being fake, people will know you're being fake. So don't like pretend to be someone you're not. Be yourself. If you're having a good day, great. If you're not having a good day, be honest with it. And so to that point, I'm going to ask you all to, in the chat box, drop your favorite joke. Because I make jokes. I'm not very funny, but I laugh at my own jokes. I took improv once. It was very cool. One of the ways I get stuff going is when people are like, you know, when the meeting's about to start, be like, hey, let's go over some housekeeping rules. I call them Zoom keeping rules. Get it? Zoom keeping? Because there's no house. Zoom? Okay. I found that really funny. Anyway, so I'm looking for jokes. What's everyone's favorite joke? Like, what's your go-to joke? Always, how much does a polar bear weigh? Enough to break the ice. I love that one. Oh my gosh. So have like a stash of maybe 1 or 2 like corny dad jokes in your back pocket. Make those jokes, because, you know, what else are you going to do, right? So that's one way to kind of break the ice. Introductions are good. Keep it simple, have easy check-in questions, but have fun with it. Ooh, I see another funny joke. A grasshopper walks into a bar and the bartender says, hey, we have a drink named after you. And the grasshopper says, you have a drink named Steve. How many tickles does it take to tickle an octopus? 10 tickles. Okay, these are really funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, so have fun with it. Bring that energy. One thing I tend to do before my Zoom meetings start is I like put on some music and I like wriggle it out. I have a thing called the Octopus Dance, and I just kind of like wriggle it out. And then it just kind of like makes me feel more like upbeat. Another piece that I do want to add is, again, Zoom sucks. So to have fun with it, make it more participatory. What does that mean? It means have games, have activities. Caroline's gonna go over like breakout rooms and stuff, but maybe about a week ago, I had to do a presentation to all staff at Urge about data, really boring data, like 10% people felt this and 6% people felt that. It was really boring. It was so boring, but I had fun with it. And that's what I would kind of want to, if you leave with anything from this piece, is to have fun with it, use breakout rooms, have games, have competitions, provide discussion questions. The game that I did was I had everyone break out into small groups. I gave them a profile and I was like, hey, pretend to be this person. What kind of stuff would you be interested in? And it actually led to some meaningful conversation. So have games, have prizes. Yeah, Jesse, we played group sims. I love that. When I was young, I used to play like make-believe. It's fun to do that shit. So yeah, with that, I am going to pass it back to Kathleen.
Sorry, it took a second to unmute myself. Hi everyone, I'm back. Yeah, I remember like the group Sims thing is so real, and I remember being like 10 years old and making like Sims music videos with all my little emo music, and it was so fun. I need to do that again. Pretend to be a YouTuber. Yes, yeah. Okay, so next slide. How do I, oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so Zoom is best explained when it comes to facilitating in like host versus non-host. So unfortunately, most fun things you can do on Zoom are host features. Okay, there's also a side note here that I didn't put here, but if you actually want to have fun with Zoom, you have to like pay for the most fun things you could do on Zoom, because most things like Zoom, yeah, like unfortunately you have to buy. If you don't have money, you can't have fun in this world, unfortunately. So Zoom is the same way. Zoom is a microcosm of shitty capitalism. And so if you want to have fun, you have to have money. But that aside, yeah, for things like webinar licensing, or even just like going over like the free 45 minutes at a time that the free unpaid version has, that's kind of the only thing that the free Zoom is. But luckily we can help everybody out. Yeah, that's what one of my bullets is like, as an Urge chapter, we can help you procure the Zoom that will best work for your meeting. So yeah, we got you. We have all types of licensing. So just ask your organizer that you work with, like, hey, I'd really love to use Urge's webinar license to Zoom for something. Or yeah, we can always make it work out. Like, but something I did in June was I helped out organizers who were organizing Sacramento's digital transgender job fair, and they didn't have a paid Zoom. And so I was like, we have a paid Zoom and we can host the job fair on our paid Zoom. And it worked out beautifully. So yeah, and then non-hosts, you can still play around. Options are just a little more limited. But like, I'm a non-host right now and I'm sharing my screen, and y'all can see me talking, so that's good. Yeah, screen shares are just kind of like what non-hosts can mostly do. Luckily, anybody can be made into a host. So if I was made to the host, I could do breakout rooms, which everybody has that bar, the toolbar below that helps you see like all the different things you could do. Most of the time people use this to like mute themselves, unmute themselves, or do a screen share. When you're a host, you'll see more options that are available to you. And one of those options is the breakout rooms option. So you can form breakout rooms as a host, and it's a really intuitive, easy process. Like the first time I ever made breakout rooms, I didn't even look at a tutorial or anything. I just like saw the option and I clicked on it. And then from there, I just kept clicking around and I did it and I made them. And it's really fun. You can like name them, you can add people into them and see, you can customize it. It's really fun. But yeah, and then another thing that you can do is, especially from a security standpoint, you can establish waiting rooms. And this will happen when you create a meeting. You'll have like a menu bar with a bunch of options to customize the meeting experience. And then there's like little check boxes, and you can check like waiting room or mute upon entry, or you could choose whether or not to let people enter before the host. So some meetings require the host to be there before others can join. Sometimes you can let anyone just come in. Like for this meeting, it wasn't necessary for the host to be in first. You could click on the link to join and join the meeting. And so there's just a lot of different things that you can do on Zoom to help your meeting be exactly or as close to what you're envisioning. So with that, I just wanted to share, I compiled some resources, and I will be dropping these slides in the chat so that you all have access to. Oh, there's a question. So is there a way to make closed captions available for non-hosts? I think that is a host thing. And then sometimes there's also different there's different licensing also sometimes for translation or transcription services, as far as I know. That's the extent to which I can answer that question. But there's definitely like if you do a Google search or even like click on some of these guides, I'm sure that question is answered in more depth there. So there's also Training for Change has a bunch of free upcoming webinars on all things Zoom related. So there's a lot of really cool ones here, like just like a 101, leading an online training, and facilitating online meetings, which is something that you all learned a lot about from Abiha just now. Designing dynamic spaces online, and then what to do when things go wrong online, which y'all will get like an idea of what to do when this happens in the Digital Defense Fund presentation, which I'm super excited for. But that concludes our little Zoom tiny crash course. I'll leave it open for some more questions. And then Amanda, thank you for answering the closed captions question. That's super helpful. Yeah, if anybody has any questions or comments, or even if you'd like to share your own experiences with Zoom, or if you just want to talk about jokes, that's also fine.
Quick question, sorry. How can we access the links for these meetings? Will they be sent us out in like a follow-up email? Because I think these particular topics are really important, and I want to be able to access these webinars.
Yeah, we'll send these slides in a follow-up email, and I'm also going to post them in the chat. I'll post the slides so that everybody can, these are all hyperlinked, so you can just click on it and it'll take you to the Training for Change page where you can register.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen in the meantime. Well, if there's nothing else, Andy, I can hand it back to you, and I'll go ahead and paste the slides that I just shared in the chat so everybody has them. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Team Cav and Abiha. We love y'all. Thank you, Abiha, for being here with us. If y'all don't know, like Abiha is really working with our alumni and really building up that network. So if you've recently graduated, Abiha is the person to go to. She is a really remarkable organizer that's coming out of Austin. So check in with her if you have the capacity. And yeah, I just want to reiterate that we do have those Zoom accounts for y'all. So use them, take them from us. That's why we have them. And the last thing I wanted to mention before we move on is that we weren't able to set up the closed captioning today. So we really want to apologize for folks who needed that service today. We are having some technical difficulties, so we are going to be troubleshooting it and hopefully we get it back up and running for the next 2 days, but we just wanted to be forward about that. So if anybody's having issues with that, please feel free to reach out to us and we can do some crash course, I don't know, alleviation. But yeah, I think now is a good time for us to maybe just take a short 10-minute break before we pass it over to the Defense Fund, if that's okay. Yeah, okay, perfect. So let's come back at the 41. Is that cool? Okay, see y'all then. Don't sign out. Just like put yourself on mute, take off your camera, and then come back soon. To our super incredible guests. I will give a little bit of context that our staff, URGE staff, did receive a really phenomenal training from them that was incredibly informative for us. And so we're super excited that they offered themselves up to share some more information with y'all, especially in the context of kind of like some of the issues that people are facing right now. I know that some chapters have talked about antis infiltrating group chats or events. I know that there are other campus orgs that are, antagonizing, the RJ orgs. So there's a lot of work to, build up our defenses, and we're super duper fortunate to have this resource at our disposal and have these really, brilliant folks share their knowledge. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Amanda and Kate.
Thank you. I'll take over screen sharing. I hope we can live up to that introduction. Yeah, so Kate and I can introduce ourselves real quick. I'm Amanda with Digital Defense Fund. I'm the project manager, and I'm based in Austin, Texas. And I'll pass it to Kate to introduce herself and then also share a bit about what Digital Defense Fund is.
Yeah, I'm Kate. I'm the director at Digital Defense Fund. We are an organization that exists to provide technology and security resources for the abortion access and provider movement. I am currently based in Los Angeles, California. So I'll let Amanda take it from here.
Yeah, thank you all again for giving us your time today. We're super excited. So we'll be going over some privacy and security tips with more of a focus on privacy. So the training that we gave to URGE staff, we talked to them a lot about passwords. We're not going to talk as much about passwords today, but we would love to come back and talk about passwords again if you'll have us. But today we'll be talking more about privacy. So our goal will be thinking about how to create your own threat model, identifying potential escalation paths for online harassment that you or your org might face, and then getting tactical tips for improving your online privacy and interrupting those escalation paths. So we'll go over a few different kinds of potential threats that people might face, and then we'll go through some solutions focused around privacy. So some of the threats. As I noted, today we're focusing on privacy, which is the amount of information that someone can find about you, versus security, which is preventing unauthorized access to your accounts. But although we will note on how you can design your event to prevent unauthorized access from people that aren't invited. So as we go through this, there'll be some things that we recommend that may not appeal to you or apply to you, and that's okay. especially when you start looking into digital security, it can get really overwhelming really fast. So it's helpful to remember that you don't have to do everything. Your specific situation is going to inform you about what you should do. So the things that can inform your threat model, which is the things you're concerned about, is some context about what type of work you're doing. So if you're organizing a controversial event, that's going to put you in a different situation than someone who's sharing their abortion story online, going to a protest, organizing a fundraiser for an abortion fund. All of these contexts can contribute to what kind of threats you might face, as well as context about your identity, your race, immigration status, age, gender, sexual orientation. All of that can affect what kind of threats you might face as well. So we do threat modeling to ground our fears in reality. The best way to predict what is going to happen or what could happen is by looking at what has happened in the past. So we talked to the URGE staff about things that have happened before, and they told us about people crashing events, joining Zoom events, or putting comments on a Facebook page. If anyone wants to share another example of an event that's happened, feel free to put that in the chat. Oh, and I just noticed Shelby put the difference between privacy and security, just asked to go do that again. So while everybody shares in anything that's happened in the past, if you want, privacy is preventing or controlling how much information people can learn about you, versus security is protecting your accounts from unauthorized access. So privacy in terms of your Facebook account would be making sure that you understand how much of what you're sharing is visible to other people. And then security for a Facebook account is making sure that only you can log in to your Facebook account. So definitely related. All right, well, I guess it's good news that no one has had security issues happen before. Yeah, security issues happen before. So I'll move on. We were imagining some things that could happen to activists. So, and plotting them on our threat model chart of likelihood and severity. So how likely is this event to happen? Something like getting mean comments or people, sending mean tweets, really, really likely to happen. Generally not super severe. It's annoying, but you can kind of block, delete, move on. People actually forcing you to change something about your event by like invading your event and forcing you in early, a little bit more severe, but less likely because that takes more energy. And then really intense, energy-intensive threats like stalking are even less likely. They do happen, but they're less likely to happen because they just take so much more energy. So these are other examples of ways that harassment can escalate online, getting other people to harass you as well. Like it starts with one person, they tell their friends, or it could be a well-organized org that, the pro-life group on campus trying to get all of their members to join in. And then they could maybe try to find your password on a breach list and attempt to take over your accounts. They could try to find your home address or look at your social media to find other information about you. So if y'all feel comfortable sharing, feel free to put in the chat any digital threats that you worry about. And if we're not going to cover them in the presentation, we'll try to provide some follow-up to make sure we get to everything. Ooh, hacking PayPal. Yeah, PayPal accounts are very valuable for cyber criminals. Using fake names to join Zoom calls and GroupMe. Yeah, infiltration. Finding someone's address. Yeah, definitely real concerns. Zoom bombing. Yeah, lots of features in Zoom can help prevent that. Cash App hacking, yeah, anything like any account related to money, that is going to be so valuable to cyber criminals. Like they want those Venmo, PayPal, Cash App accounts. Finding your place of work, yeah, involving local personal accounts, definitely taking it from one account to another. Ooh, yeah, screenshotting things and then sharing those amongst themselves. And sometimes that can then fuel more people going to comment or tweet or send harassment. Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of these things. So just a reminder that we call kind of taking one threat to another, like to the next level, a path of escalation. And as the severity of a threat increases, its likelihood decreases. So our best defense is making escalation more difficult. So someone sees that tweet, they want to do something about it. Our goal is to make sure that their options to do something to harass us is limited. And I will pass it over to Kate to talk about limiting your risk for doxing.
Excellent. All right, so yeah, just to kind of get into it, this is the part where we're gonna have your hands on the keyboard doing some things yourself if you feel available for that. So definitely feel free to minimize this window, or like close this window to something smaller and then open up another window, because we are going to actually try searching ourselves. And I'm gonna recommend that you use a private browsing or incognito window. And we do this because Google in particular tends to customize your search results based on things you've searched or used or accessed before. So we want to try and do that fresh so it more reflects what somebody who would be stranger to you might see. Feel free to use other, like, I've gotten the question before to like, should we use, if you don't use Google, to use something else, but you can, but just know that like if we're coming from the point of view of somebody who has sort of adversarial intentions, they are probably going to use Google first. Yeah, thank you so much for Amanda. And we're gonna give you probably like 5 minutes. So I think I'll probably give you until about, 12:57. And if you have certain sites that come up or anything surprising, like certain sites that seem to have a lot of information, or something that's like kind of surprising that something that old came up, let us know. I would say also, if you're very familiar already with your search results, try searching just your phone number or just your email as well. I think that reveals some interesting things that might be kind of left over hanging out on the internet back when we were all a little less wary of things like putting your email just open on the internet. So shout out also to everybody with a super unique name like me. So you are not alone.
Yeah, I have a very common name, Amanda Bennett, and so I basically don't find anything about myself unless I search also for like my email or Amanda Bennett abortion or something like that.
Excellent. Yeah, I always try to do it again once in a while. Sometimes something new pops up that's kind of interesting. When searching phone numbers, should we use dashes? It's a great question. I try a couple of different iterations. Dashes are the things that I use most, just because that's how it would tend to be formatted on some of these websites and things. Like, for example, I found out that my cell phone number was out there for a while because I was the registered agent for a former business, and they used the dashes, and that's how I found it. So it's helpful to, I think, try as many iterations as you can. But that's a great question. All right, any websites in particular, you can put them in the chat, that are coming up as having a lot more perhaps than you expected. Some of those sites like, oh, so Emily says the whole first page is actually me, and surprise is an understatement. Yeah, Google Images is good to check out. I think it's just like good to know, like the reason we do this is because if somebody decides they want to escalate some problem they have with you, like this is the very first thing they're going to do, is they're going to pop your name into Google and see what comes up. And I think it's really good for you to just even have in your mind, like, already what's available to them and what's not. Yeah, searching phone number, voter records, LinkedIn, hometown, people's Disney Plus emails and passwords. Oh yeah, good suggestion from Kat to see, there's a website run by a security researcher called Have I Been Pwned, which is to tell you whether or not emails that you've used on certain services online, like Canva or LinkedIn have had a password in a breach. Yeah, Amanda, I think will jump in and tell you a little more about like why we love it so much. But it's a great tool to kind of like secure your own footprint while we're thinking about all the information that's out there about us.
Yeah, we talk a lot about have I been pwned in our like password focused trainings. I don't think we talk about it today, so I'm really glad someone brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think honestly, it's a good way like doing this to remember ourselves that some interesting things can happen when we try to look up even antis. So like there might be people with more than one name who are the same, like, you know, or like that the people with multiple people with the same name. So like being extra sure that if you think you're doing some recon on somebody who's been bothering you, that you have the correct person is like very important both for you and for everyone else with the misfortune of sharing their name or yours, as you can sometimes find out. An 18-year-old had a high-speed chase and then died. Oh, that's really sad. I think some of the stuff that comes up too, it's also just good to know that, you know, if there are a lot of people who share your name, that can be itself kind of helpful. But I think it's also just important to remember that just putting in a couple of other keywords after it, some people will search like your name and then your location, and that tends to filter out a lot of what they would be looking for. So we can go to the next slide, I think. Now that you've kind of gotten an idea of what's out there, almost everything that you found about yourself, and we're going to try to tackle at least the ones we know we can be removed from the internet. So you can take steps to control what your search results are. All right, so now we're going to talk about the vast number of ways to remove information. So spend more time learning about what's out there. You will get a copy of this deck again, and there's a great guide from Access Now called Doxing Yourself. The term dox is short for dropping documents. It referred to the practice back in the early Wild West days of the internet where people would, you know, basically decide to take information on somebody with private information, dump it in a far more public space, like your home address or something, with the purpose of trying to harass you. So think about somebody where someone attacking you would start. So you would have your real name. They might reverse image search a photo that they found of you, either like on a website for a group you work with or your username or handle. And I think it's really, really helpful to then kind of like try out some usernames as well. So we might have you try that again if you want to like pop open the window. So it's important to also note, how do these websites get my home address anyway? So it turns out there are a couple of different ways. Unfortunately, a lot of property records are public by default. Government records in general tend to be kind of back aggregated depending on especially what state you live in. They often are purchased from websites, apps, and stores. So like magazine subscriptions, rewards cards, credit cards, as I found out, unfortunately, when you do a address change through USPS, depending on if you forget to uncheck every box, they will forward your information to a lot of like lenders and things. So that's kind of how it gets in that ecosystem. And on our next slide, you can actually, on each of those sort of home address websites, there is typically a link. I think it's required to have something where you can claim your listing and then take it down. So I will note, though, it's not unusual for those websites to ask for a redacted scanned driver license. So don't be surprised if that's required. I think that's actually quite normal on a lot of sites, so that you can prove you are you to get that information taken down or resolve anything else that's related to that listing. So we actually have there's a giant workbook at this website, which is abbean.com/optouts.php. There's also 2 other guides that we know folks have used and had a good time with. One is the Michael Bazzel's Extreme Privacy Opt-out Workbook, and then the Big Ass Data Broker Opt-out List, which is just like it sounds. So we actually at Digital Defense Fund decided that it was worth it for us to get a paid service. There are a few of them. One of them is called Delete Me. Yeah, an opt-out party is a really great idea. I often like try to incentivize myself to do my like privacy chores this way. So just sitting down and getting it done, like it can take a bit, but I think it's very worth it for the peace of mind. I utilize a paid service that is about, I think it runs about $100 a year, but it sweeps every 6 weeks and takes it off of like 75 different sites. Your information, often they have family plans, so I know it is some money, but for some folks, they find that for their job or for something else, it can be kind of worth it. Yeah, so that's definitely worth your time. It does take an enormous piece of risk out of the pool, which is just like why we recommend taking a closer look at what's out there online about you. So yeah, so when you're creating, how to keep this stuff from getting back onto the internet. Oh yeah, good reminder from Emily to actually check again as well. And then folks saying that, yeah, that opting out of white pages is easy, that if you have an experience of stalking, it's really good to like, just make sure, especially, like, I'm sorry you have to deal with that. But these are the kinds of solutions in particular that I know we've learned a lot actually from the domestic violence support community and experts. And you can see one of those guides here. So when you are registering or creating a new account, you can give out fake information. Amanda does this really fun thing where she sees where she'll use a fake name and then sign up for like a magazine or something. And then it's very interesting to see what mail comes to your house addressed to that fake person to kind of like track how the ecosystem of resale goes, which was pretty interesting, like Wired magazine. There's a great guide at hackblossom.org, which does a lot of great threat modeling based on all of these different kinds of scenarios that we noted. So definitely we'll check it out. I recommend sometimes that you might want to, for various reasons, to get an alternate address and phone number. Unfortunately, these are also paid options, but they can be quite affordable comparatively, like the PO Box services. So there's a USPS mailbox is usually the cheapest. If you have services you know you need to use where you can't have a PO box, it excludes PO addresses. I personally have something called the Commercial Mail Receiving Agency box. It's a small mom and pop store that's in my neighborhood, and I pay a pretty affordable monthly rate, and they give me what it looks like a real street address for my mail. So I use that for just about everything. For phone number, you can use a Google Voice. I use a paid app called Sudo, which is basically, you can also attach a burner phone number to a burner email, which can be very useful for things. Like I have one that I just used for all my, back when we traveled, for travel stuff, because travel sites tend to get breached a lot. So, you know, it's a lot of valuable information in there. So I try to like approach these things by like separating my risk out. So you can still have your personal phone number, obviously, that you use with all your friends and family. But I think it's nice that for work, for professional things, to kind of like partition out the risk that you might have. You know, for example, there's a site called also Twilio, which you can buy and manage phone numbers, and do something called porting, which like if I signed up and bought a phone number on there and then ported it to my actual cell phone, when somebody dials that number, it's just going to come straight to me through the same phone number. But it's an extra thing to manage, so just pick the option that's as high touch or low touch as you have time to deal with. So, okay, so we have a question here. How does commercial mail receiving box work? You have to go physically pick it up, unfortunately. I think like it is a box, and just like a PO box, so you will have to go get it. So
there are some that will forward your mail or scan your mail to you for an extra fee.
Ooh, I didn't know about that. That's really fun. Need to find one of those. So I have to note that not all doxing is digging up secrets. I think often we do get a lot of people who let us know that something that is technically public is then placed in a space where it becomes more sensitive or more impactful. So it's important to kind of get out in front of that and say, does your employer organization have a page with your full like face and address, or for your photo, email, or phone number? If you're on the board of a nonprofit, some things are going to be public as part of state tax filings or state secretary of state records. Does your university share information about your activities and accomplishments? Sometimes there are athletic team rosters, award recipients. You can find out that stuff gets written up about events or things are published that you've worked on. So just like make sure that you are aware. And often I found that if you go back and ask them to remove you from some of these websites, folks are usually pretty nice about it. Is there a way to hide a return address when mailing things to others like UPS or USPS? Amanda's got this covered, which is that there has to be a return address But that's actually a great reason to use the PO box. And also seeing if you can use a work email instead or work address instead. Yeah, I think it's just like recommended that you put it out there. I think the thing I always like to remind people of is that the USPS works by having a federal employee come pick up things out of a box that is locked and bringing them directly to the person that it was intended to. So most mail sent through the USPS system is, unless it is going to a general box where a lot of people will dig through it, is actually a pretty safe way to send things, which is very non-intuitive. And I appreciate it more the more I read about it. So it's been a very interesting learning experience, reading everything going on around the USPS right now. So yeah, it's a great question though. Very important one. So we can get to the next slide. Excellent. So yeah, for each of these items, you can ask the folks who maintain those sites and spaces to update using your initials, an avatar, or remove your contact information. I think it's really, really important, especially if you are on board a nonprofit, to ask them on their next filing to please like replace some of the information. And honestly, I found that people are much more aware these days that privacy is on people's minds and that everybody has different needs. And so when you go back and ask somebody to like update a blog post to remove something or update a page to remove things, people are a lot more understanding. So yeah. So if you think this stuff is very interesting and you want to learn more about like in depth on different topics, I recommend checking out something called the Privacy, Security, and OSINT show. I often have to sit there with like a notebook and like just while I'm listening, just like write out notes because it's very, very dense on information. Each of the titles of the episodes will have like topics you might want to dig into, like what data does my cell phone really give up to towers, and how can I remove all my stuff from the internet? It's very thorough. Cons, he's a former law enforcement officer, rarely has women on his show, and does not have an intersectional approach at all. So if you become an expert and want to start a podcast, I will subscribe and design your first fundraiser mug. So please do it. But otherwise, if you have any other suggestions on podcasts y'all like or other learning materials, please feel free to share them in chat. I think there's a lot of great stuff out there now. Andy says, when I was a student, I could have my university email address removed from the directory. Yeah, that's a really great point, actually. That there are opt-outs for things like that too. I forgot that some universities maintain directories like that, and you can reach out to the administrator. And with that, I will pass it back to Amanda.
Great. Cool. So one thing that may have already come up for you when you did a search was your social media accounts, but sometimes you do have to search a little more specifically to be able to see what is public on your social media accounts. So if you can take a moment and choose, we're going to do another kind of similar search activity. Pick what you want to look at. I would recommend picking the one you use the most, which could be something I don't have on here, but generally Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Go to that account and copy and paste your profile, and then open one of those incognito browser windows, because that will automatically log you out, and paste that link in. And this should allow you to see your social media account as if you were someone else. If you want to do this for Facebook, they actually offer a view as function. So you can go to your profile and there's like a little eye looking icon that I copied in here. You can click on that to view your Facebook as someone else. So once you get there, kind of similar to the last exercise, if you want to share anything surprising that you didn't realize was visible, yeah, I've walked through this with a couple of friends, and one of them had put her phone number in her Twitter bio at one point and forgot about it, and it was still there. Are there posts that you didn't realize were public? Feel free to share anything surprising. Yeah, there are certain things about each of these profiles that will be public by default. So as Kate mentions, profile pictures, I think on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as banners tend to be public by default, and some of them you can't make private. So if you have an account on that platform, that is going to be public. So a good thing to think about when you're choosing a profile picture or a banner or a whatever they call the big picture behind you on that site.
And honestly, I think the reason that we invite folks to do all this stuff is because what we're trying to do is make it not impossible, but a lot more difficult to like dig through and really find out that detailed information about you that somebody can abuse or misuse. You know, we always have these like sort of like, how can I like make it expensive, make it inconvenient, make it really tedious, and that is a very good, very effective, like fortunately for us and unfortunately for adversaries, to in making it easy to do what they want instead of have the information only you want them to have. So if you have any other tips like this, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. I think it's always good to, I should do another peek at mine as well. This is a great activity for your family members, by the way, too.
So for the profile URL, that's what's going to be in the bio. So once you click on your bio, so I mean, you're looking for the like URL, that like www.twitter/your handle. So if you just find your account like on a regular web browser, and then put that in an incognito window. So mine would be twitter.com/Bennett report, because Amanda Bennett's a common name and it's hard for me to find handles. So yours will look something like that for Twitter. So we're just copying and pasting the URL. Or you can log out and then try to find it, but opening an incognito window basically makes sure you're not logged in.
Yeah. I like that they've made the view as option on Facebook a lot easier to find.
So Emily, yeah, I feel the same sometimes when I look back at things I've made before. I'm like, but Facebook actually has some features where you can make, like you can bulk make past posts private. So this is kind of a good segue, I guess, into some of our tools for social media accounts. So a lot of the stuff that shows up you can control. So except for those items that Kate mentioned, that like the profile picture, you can hide a lot of what you've shared. So one thing you can do is make sure your social media accounts aren't findable for Google. So if you Googled yourself and your social media accounts popped up and you didn't want them to, every site has a way to de-index your search results from Google, so that people have to go there. They have to like guess the URL or find you through the site, and that just makes it a little bit harder to find your information. If you saw a lot of locations that were visible, Facebook and I think Twitter have ways to remove all location data from past posts. And then going forward, you can remind yourself to be mindful about location sharing, especially if it's something that's part of your routine. I know most of our routines are just at home now, but if you're somewhere where it is a little safer and things are starting to open up, and you're going to the same coffee shop every day, that's something that someone might be able to tell. And if someone can identify, you know, the neighborhood that you live, that's something to consider as well. Kat mentioned location sharing on your phone. Yes, that's definitely, like on Twitter, I think you have to turn off location sharing like in a separate place on the desktop app versus on the phone app. And you can turn off access to your location for all the apps on your phone, like through your phone as well. And then if you looked at yourself like from a public view, did you see an option to send yourself a message? If so, you might want to go back into your account and comb through some of the privacy settings to see if you can limit who can contact you on social media, if you want to limit who can contact you on social media. And again, this is definitely one of those places where your context is going to inform the choices that you make a lot. This is going to be different for everyone depending on what is safest for you. So you'll get all these links afterwards. We have blogs on our website for privacy and security settings on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And then I found the link on TikTok for safety resources that they have as well. And you can definitely kind of bring mindfulness into your use of social media. This checklist is from the endtechabuse.org website. You can control what you post, but knowing that anything you post can be reposted or screenshot. So if you have a Twitter that's public and you're posting tweets, like someone mentioned in the chat earlier, they can be screenshotted and shared in a group chat by your adversaries. So that's definitely something to be mindful of when you're posting. Consider, blocking people or making your Twitter private, depending on what your threat model is and how public you want to be. And as we said, you don't have to delete social media. You don't have to delete everything you've already posted. You can really be mindful about your use of social media, tagging locations, and sharing any other identifying information. And it actually can be beneficial to have a really robust presence on social media, because that will give you a foothold if someone is trying to impersonate you. It's a lot easier to submit a claim and report impersonation on these sites if you have a robust account yourself. Ooh, yeah, and Kate mentioned in the chat that you don't have to make your account private forever. You can make it private if you're going to be in the news or if you're planning a big event, and then you can make it public again after. So homework for this section is going to be doing those platform specific privacy instructions again later. All right, so our final kind of searching yourself activity is going to be looking at an event that you've organized or attended before. So think about a conference, a protest, a event on campus, any kind of event that you've organized or attended, and then thinking like an investigator, go to the Facebook page or look up the hashtag and see what you can figure out. So I'm gonna do this on my phone and look up a virtual conference that I went to earlier this week and see if I can find out anything interesting.
I'm gonna look up some old, I used to do these abortion design days.
Ooh, yes.
I'm gonna look up some of the old stuff from there.
Yeah, you might be able to find other hashtags associated with the event, people or organizations that attended the event. I don't know why I did the British spelling of organizations there. Anything juicy that was shared at the event. Yeah, I find all the information about who presented, who won the awards at this event. Feel free to share in the chat anything interesting that you find about the event that you're looking at.
Yeah, like on the old events on, say, things like Facebook, can you still see who attended and the RSVP list and things like that? Any posts on the wall? Sometimes you can find on Instagram, the people have like made a new location for the event. And if you click on it, you can see all the photos.
Ooh, that's a great tip.
Yeah, like, and that's I give another class that will obviously let y'all know about it if you know, the next one's coming up, but on doing like open source intelligence research for opposition research and things like that. And that's a big one we use a lot. So, because that Instagram has way more on it if you bother to look than one would think.
Yeah.
All right.
So now we'll talk about some ways that you can plan with privacy and security in mind for your events. So there's a number of questions to decide as you're planning an event or a gathering. Will it be public or private? How will you advertise it? How will you collect RSVPs? Do you want to have a social media policy? And what platform will you use? So there's a great workbook from another digital security organization called Tactical Tech. And they have this exercise where they ask you to weigh the benefits of a public event versus the risks of a public event. So I'm sure this is something that you already do when you think about planning events, especially for an abortion access type event. I know that orgs I've been with have to weigh this. Do we want to try to recruit new volunteers, which requires opening us up, and then weighing that versus the chance that someone might show up who's opposed to our cause. So this is a great activity to do with your group as you're planning whether you want the event to be public or not. And feel free to share in the chat kind of as we go through this, any thoughts you have on benefits, risks of each of these, like, you know, organizing an event, making it public or not. And then there's also a kind of a whole array of options in between public and private. You can have it public, just like flyers everywhere, invitations to everyone on Facebook, like posting it on, you know, social media, sharing it on your university's calendar. Like there's all sorts of ways that you can really put everything out there. Or you can have it be slightly kind of controlled public event where people have to register for tickets. You could have tickets be first come, first serve, like automatically approved. Or you can have to approve or deny someone's registration. You can do just word of mouth with your network. You can do invitation only. So there's a whole range besides just public and private. And of course, which of those options you can use will depend on what tool you're using to organize the event. So if you're using Facebook, you have one set of controls for who can see and who can invite people to the event. If you're using Eventbrite, you're gonna have another set of controls. If you set up a Google form, you get to decide what questions you want to ask for people who are registering. You can actually, with a paid Zoom account, you can require people to register for an event, and then you can either approve or deny their registration, which is another really powerful tool from Zoom. There's also kind of two sides to your ability to collect more or less information from each platform. So if you're using something like a Google form, and you're trying to organize a really sensitive event, it might not be the best decision because of all the metadata that form automatically collects, things like an IP address, whatever other questions you ask. But at least with a Google form, you can really customize the questions that you ask. For something like Eventbrite or a Zoom registration, they're also going to collect a lot of metadata that you are then responsible for storing, as well as all of the data that you ask them to collect. And metadata is just the data that people don't enter into the form, but that is collected anyway, like IP address. Yes, authenticated users only is a question that Shelby's asking in the chat. That means that people will have to have a Zoom account in order to join. So they're authenticated by Zoom, not by you. Yeah, so anyone can make a free Zoom account. It just makes it like, it just adds another step. If someone wants to harass you, they have to sign up for a Zoom account to do it, and then expose an email, but they can always make a burner email, and Zoom accounts are free. So I'm not sure how much extra security that adds, but depending on what you're concerned about, it's definitely an option. Yeah, and so again, each platform that you use is going to have a variety of security settings. These change pretty often, especially for Zoom. When they were getting like, you know, slammed at the beginning of the pandemic for all their security issues, a lot more security settings appeared like overnight as their development team added them. So that's why we don't go through specific settings in the presentation, because they could be changing as we're talking about them. So we recommend that you just go in and experiment, just look through all those settings. If you find something that you don't understand, Google it. A lot of universities actually have really great Zoom safety guidelines. That's one of the first things that pops up when I Google like how to prevent Zoom bombing. I sent one to my dad recently because he was asking me about how to prevent Zoom bombing. So even though I'm not a student at UCLA or whatever, I was, you know, using their guide to help me. So you can definitely find some great resources. And some of those settings to keep an eye out for are the ones about screen sharing, who's allowed to screen share. And then you can also adjust settings so that users that you kick out can't rejoin. You can require a host to let people in from the waiting room so that, you know, you can only let people in who you recognize, things like that. They've actually added a lot of features to prevent Zoom bombing. It's just a matter of, you know, figuring out that they're there. Yeah, and then lots of platform options. You can even do like events that don't have any participation to like super participation rich, depending on your threat model as well. So if you're concerned about Zoom bombing, one option would just be to like live stream. If it's a panel, you could live stream on any platform. And then within Zoom meetings, there's, you know, open meetings where you just need the link and then you're in. There's registration where someone has to be approved. There's the authenticated users option where the person has to have a Zoom account. And there's also a webinar function in the paid accounts where there's just a Q&A. So there's not even a chat. It's just the presenters, whoever's hosting, and then a Q&A option for people. So as you're planning events, you can kind of consider all of these options and figure out which works for you. And then you can also consider creating a social media event policy. If anyone has done this before, feel free to share what's worked for you. I've definitely attended lots of conferences that have social media policies. Some things that might be included in this are, or some things to think about are like, what social media might people use the most? What concerns do people have? Like, is there a presenter who doesn't want any screenshots taken? Are there some parts of the event that are public and some that aren't? And then thinking about useful tools. One that I've heard a lot is what's shared here stays here and what's learned here leaves here. You can't always like enforce these, but it can be really powerful to share these policies throughout the meeting, just to make sure that people at least know what's expected and what's okay. So just some homework to do afterwards. If you didn't have time to kind of fully complete this exercise, we recommend going back and digging even deeper with your investigator hat on. Consider like trying to draw a network of connections. Think from the perspective of someone who might be like, oh, I wonder who else is pro-choice. Let me start by looking at who attended this event. Can I see who they're friends with? Can I see posts that they've commented on? Things like that. You can really dig deep. This is called open source intelligence investigation. And it's a whole like career and job. But yeah. Yes, Kate shares that another version of those social media rules is Chatham House rules, which is you can share what happened and what you learned, but you have to get consent if you want to attribute a quote or something said to someone in particular, which is a great guiding rule for events. All right, so you've done your best to control what shows up in a search about you, to control what people can see on your social media, and to organize your event with privacy in mind, but sometimes people are dedicated enough to harass you anyway. So I'll pass it over to Kate to talk about what to do next if this happens to you.
Yeah, so first things first, don't panic. I think it's very much a common thing that does happen. And I will say that part of what we're going to go through here is to like make sure that you can have the kind of functional things that you need to do to feel like you have more control in a situation. I think that's really important to get people sort of like out of the space where feeling helpless is really damaging to not only to just like what happens next, but also to yourself and long-term being able to take care of your emotional health in the moment. So we're going to come up with a variety of different ways. Some of them will require doing things yourself or knowing when to ask for help. And I think like getting into this next slide, I really liked that there was a great quote from somebody who was a founder of Trollbusters, is that all threats are real. Anytime somebody makes a threat that intimidates or scares you is real and has real emotional and psychological impact. So part of this is going to be about going through and figuring out like, how severe is it? What are my next steps? But just to know that, you know, even if it turns out to be not as much as you thought, if it's frightening in the moment, it's absolutely real and should be taken just as seriously by you and your peers. So we're going to go through some of these steps a little bit more in depth, but just as an overview, it's going to be telling your friends and family, documenting the things you see, blocking bad actors where you can, and the last is something we can always help you with, which is to seek legal assistance if it gets to that point. So yeah, we are all in the stigma busting business here. And I think it's really important to let folks know if something is happening to you, to like say that, you know, unfortunately, due to the work that I'm doing and this thing I've been working on, I've been targeted by a group and, you know, tell them to watch out for fake or imposter accounts, decide on a reliable way to communicate. So like, you know, if they know that their own messages from you are only going to come via this reliable channel, it can be really helpful to have them figure out then what might be some impersonation stuff that is popping up on the internet. And then enlist them as allies to notice if anything is off or weird. It's way easier when you have a community of people who are looking out for you, reporting posts, like trying to just use their own mind, which is not often is taken up with the business of trying to take care of yourself in the moment. So I would say, is WhatsApp also encrypted? I know Signal is. Just to interject quickly here, WhatsApp actually uses Signal protocol. So basically it is also what we call end-to-end encrypted. The reason we might recommend Signal is that WhatsApp keeps a little bit more of the extra data that is not the content of your messages. So it often saves things like who was in a group chat together, the name of the group chat, other kinds of information that Signal does not. So in terms of keeping the least amount of metadata, that is probably your preferred option. Yeah, we will also definitely chat more about encryption if you'd like. So because, you know, some of the stuff is very, very overwhelming to deal with in the moment, we do also recommend that you recruit a friend to help. It allows you to kind of step back and not worry that you are missing some development or some escalation that you would need to deal with. Recruiting a friend to help sit down to take over some of the tasks for you. That can include giving folks access to your accounts if you would rather that they read inbound tweets, or you would like to delegate something like your inbox to filter through so that they can tell like what's possibly going to need more attention. I think this is like a really, really helpful thing. So document before you delete. I would say this is very non-intuitive. Often when we encounter material that is harassing, upsetting, and potentially threatening, we often want to push it away. And in this case, documenting it, saving screenshots that are thorough, we'll go over kind of what the qualities of a good screenshot are, can give you more options later when you are feeling more safe and stable in having the room to decide what you would like to do next. It gives you all the options. So this is a great website that often, again, we learn a lot from our peers and friends who deal with a lot of online harassment and domestic violence issues. And one of them is endtechabuse.org. They have qualities of a screenshot, which should have the complete contact information and date stamps if they're visible. So like the actual usernames that are being used. You want the complete context, so not just like a threatening message by itself, but the message of yours that it is responding to, or the thread if it takes place in a longer conversation. Controlling access to those posts. So often we don't realize that, for example, if somebody leaves something on a Facebook post that's out there either as part of a campaign, you can actually make that post private, and then it prevents the person who made the original comment from going back and deleting the comment, which can be very, very helpful. So you also then want to make sure that you have confidential storage. So keep these screenshots in a place where they are not likely to be breached, so that the person can delete their offending screenshots. So you also have some community resources at your disposal. There's guidance from URGE national staff, folks who've like dealt with a wide variety of situations and have you know, advice that is much more relevant to that context. Rules and assistance for student organizations at your university. Often there are resources there, especially when you're using university resources to post on in some of those environments, either if it's like web forums, their Facebook page, things like that. There are often some other rules and remediations available for you. Andy notes that maybe URGE chapters can invite Digital Defense Fund to host sessions with your people. I would love to, and I know Amanda would too. So there are others in your network, including on this call, who may have some experience, and I think just knowing that it's okay to reach out and ask how folks handle this situation. Often you'll find that people will come out of the woodwork and say like, wow, that actually happened to me about a year ago, and here was the resolution that I found. So it can be very destigmatizing and very encouraging to have that kind of fellowship. So block. I know it's non-intuitive again, because sometimes we worry if we block people that they are going to do something and we cannot see. And often now almost all of these different resources, these different websites have a way for you to view and unhide somebody you have blocked, just so you can kind of see what they're posting, what they're up to, and it does not expose your account to them. Blocking is really effective because what it also does is often prevents people from resharing your content easily. And I think that's something that even if they have to then make a new account, that's extra work. We just want to increase the amount of work that folks are doing. I will also note, especially for this group, that block lists are shareable, particularly on platforms like Twitter and often on Facebook. Even when you have things like, if you manage certain pages, you can also have like lists of keywords that can get flagged. So if you have some things like that there, it will automatically hide the comment, and it makes it a lot harder for escalation. So yeah, if you have questions about any of this, let us know. But cutting off that flow of information from problematic people to their networks is an extraordinary tool. And I think that sharing block lists is something I hope as a community we get more into. So we have referrals to Counsel free of cost if you receive messages on phone, email, text that cross the line into threatening. They can also review comments online that you're not sure about. Often you can ask if you don't want to have to pick through all of the abusive comments and find any that might be sensitive in a legal manner, you could ask a teammate or friend to go through these for you. So I would say it's often always worth it to check. So yeah. Have I Been Pwned's been mentioned, and we definitely recommend it as a tool to see if your email and its password has been exposed on any public breaches. It is super common for websites. Like, people spend a lot of dedicated effort to breach, like LinkedIn's. I think in 2017 they had a pretty big like email and password breach. And I think one of the things that it's your to-do list after visiting something like Have I Been Pwned is to not only change the passwords associated with that account, but also change any passwords that are reused. So a common escalation path for folks who are often publicly speaking as well, or they're going to testify in an important court case, a hacker will try and find that breach list for sale, buy it, and then bet that that breached password was reused on something more important, like your work email. So make sure you change those passwords, store them somewhere secure. We love password managers. We can always answer questions offline about those, and then turn on two-factor, which is the business where you turn on either it texts you or uses the Authy app or a physical key to say, I know I just got your password, but I'm going to check one more time that this is really you. So something you know plus something you have. And I think it goes without saying, but I think trust your gut. We say all the time that security is a function of community and not technology. You have instinct and expertise built off of your experiences with your work, the communities that you're in, the people you know, and it is honestly an irreplaceable asset. And I'm so glad that this leadership network in particular gets to share it with each other. Any questions? Oh, a great resource here from Melissa. Avast Hack Check is another in-depth to secure your emails, which emails and passwords have been breached. Can tell you which social media accounts and what occurred. That's a great tool. I'm going to check that out. Thank you.
I'm wondering if it might use the API from Have I Been Pwned.
It might. That's true. I mean, it's a wonderful resource. I'm feeling very grateful that people try and now put these things out there. You can also search if you have some other resources, like we have a little list here. You can always feel free to send them out to the network. We like to encourage people to sort of just like make this part of their regular part of what they share to do our work together. So if you spot like a breach that on something that you think a lot of people might use, like a lot of folks use Canva, and we'll try our best often when we see stuff like that to pop it up. But we are a resource as well. Please reach out to us, and yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So yeah, any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. You can unmute yourselves, but it's wonderful to get to go through this with you.
Oh my goodness, wow. So generative. I feel like everyone's just like stunned at all of the knowledge that they have to kind of like sit with now, because when I think about social media in particular, I feel like what really ruined it for me in my brain is like when it started becoming like a capitalist advertising mechanism. And yeah, we just have so much to be mindful of now. But thank you all so much for being here. I know that we are a little bit over time, but I do want to just remind y'all to fill out today's feedback survey. We'd love to hear how today went for y'all. So I just dropped the link. Feel free to, tell us what's up. It's quick and easy. And if y'all have any questions, obviously, please check in with your state organizer. You can check in with me. If y'all have any questions for Kate or Amanda, please feel free to follow up with them. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to offer up, but I think we're good to close. Yeah, don't forget to use your food money. You got $20 today, use them.
Love it. Thanks for having us. It was always
Thank
a
you
pleasure.
so much.
Ooh.
Y'all are doing such important work. Share the knowledge. We're here to fight back and protect ourselves. Wonderful. I think the Uber Eats code is still active for about 15 to 30 minutes after the session's over, if I'm not mistaken. So use it ASAP. And yeah, I think that's it. Please get in contact with us if anything else comes up, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Hopefully see you tomorrow, and definitely see you Saturday. Bye, friends.